Hello and welcome back to Apple Tree Cottage here in the Scottish borders. It's lovely to see you again. And just before we begin, I would like to thank all the people who commented so beautifully on the comment sections of my last few episodes. It's really appreciated, and it's certainly a reason for why I keep coming back. It's nice to be wanted. So today is Tuesday the 24th of June 2025, and here we are to give an update on what has actually been quite a busy week for me. The summer is a time when family visit, and I've certainly been having a lovely time in the past week, and I'm looking forward to other family members coming as the summer progresses. And that's possibly a reason also why I perhaps have not quite so much stitched as I might have otherwise. But it's just lovely to have people to stay. And the other thing is that the weather broke here in the Scottish borders quite violently on the 21st of June, and I think it was the 21st, 22nd, and that was really because the temperatures just climbed and climbed. We were having beautiful sunny days. The garden was loving it. My roses were all coming out. And the temperature here reached 28 degrees. That's centigrade, so that's about 80 in Fahrenheit. I'm still really working in Fahrenheit, I have to say. And then the pressure built up, and we had this incredible lightning electric storm in the night. And you'll be pleased to know Casper was fine. He seemed to really quite enjoy it. He didn't get too soaked, and he was safe, and then came home after all the rain stopped, and was fine. The temperature now is 9 degrees, so we go from one extreme almost to the other, and you can see I'm wearing my cardigan again to try and keep warm. It's the differences in temperature we have to keep up with, but I actually love the climate here. I really do. I like a temperate climate. Evidently there was a lightning strike in the small town where I live, and the gas station, that's gas as opposed to petrol. We would say petrol here in the UK. This was the gas, and evidently the local terminal was hit. Evidently phone lines were out as well for a while. That didn't seem to affect me, I have to say. Fortunately, no one was injured, no one was killed, but the fire engine was called out, so that was a bit of excitement in my small town here. So getting back on track with stitching. Now this has been a week in the past week where I have continued to come into my garden, and I've also been going into my garden. I tend to find May is incredibly busy month for gardening here for me, and it starts to lessen off as we come into June, but still doing a certain amount in the garden, and certainly a certain amount on the sampler here. I am stitching this on vintage country mocha, which is not Blackwood Designs suggested fabric, linen. They suggest Velt by 36 count Velt by Picture This Plus, and this is how it comes up in the photograph. I'm very glad I went with the choice that I did. Honestly, I can't remember why, but it's worked out extremely well with the threads. I have been using the recommended threads, and the threads are quite sort of orangey and sandy in colour, so I'm finding my choice of of linen fabric works very well. I'm using clips as I come down. I'm rolling up the fabric and I'm clipping them with the little clips that some people are now using instead of pins when they're doing sewing. So if you're wondering how to deal with surplus fabric, this is a pretty good way of keeping it out the way. I use a small hoop as I come down, but even then there's quite a surplus of fabric here, and I do like it to be kept out the way. So I can take that out now because I've shown you that little suggestion there. And the thing about linen is that it does crease and wrinkle, but the good thing is that it will come out. It's a very pliable fabric, and so it will come out with stretching. There we are. And also, of course, with pressing. Not that I do not like to press over the stitches themselves. I think that's not a good idea. I've been working mostly, I finished the border at the beginning and completed some of the inner little garden spaces on the bottom of the fabric and then on the top. And then I decided I would work gradually down. And so I've got to these little rooms here, which I've now completed. I think it was this one I completed in the last week. And I completed the motif. I've done a great deal on the house. I have all the windows completed and the roof completed. And then I've started on what will be the basket of flowers in the middle as I'm coming down. This is a sampler I would highly recommend. It's actually, so far in my relatively short history as a sampler stitcher, this is my outstanding favourite. Partly because of the fabric that I've chosen, which is a nice loose fabric, because of the colour, but mostly because of the design. It just seems to ask to be stitched. The motifs are a lovely size. I like the font of the alphabet, but I just love the colour. I love that blue that has been chosen. So highly recommend you do have a go with this, but I would not necessarily recommend the Velt. That would be a personal choice. So there we are, keeping going, and that is with an alternation with Merrily Merrily We Welcome the Spring. I'm doing them a week about, and this one will inevitably be finished, completed before the other Merrily Merrily, the other Blackbird designs. So let's keep going. The next one that I was stitching this week, again, Blackbird Designs, thoroughly enjoying. My heart can rest, and I'm enjoying this because it's really quirky and uneven, and there's a real charm in it. It was a French girl who stitched it, and this is the original that they've used. I love the colours, and I like the fact that there is an innocence about this after quite a regimented and perfect Anne Grant or Come Into My Garden, everything very regular, or Charlotte Frost, all very regular, and then this one here is definitely not regular. And so this week I have chosen to follow the pattern itself, follow the original itself. Blackbird Designs have added a large bird and taken away the flag. They've removed the flag and the little, I think it might be a little chapel rather than a house. It could be a little house or a chapel, certainly the building. And I preferred going to the original and using the flag and omitting the bird. So this is where I have reached on this one, and there's the little building there. It's been really sweet to stitch away. Now, the called for threads are not what I used. I had a mixture of silks. The fabric I did use, the called for fabric I have used, which is corn tassel. An unusual count, it's 37 count. And I actually managed to obtain it through 123 Stitch from the States. They have suggested 36 count Heartland. I didn't go for that because I couldn't find it. So I went for the corn tassel instead, which is working very well, which is 37 count. And then with the threads, Barb Adams had suggested Classic Colour Works and Weeks Dye Works, a sort of mix between the two. And I have chosen silks, most of which I had in my silk drawer. There's only one that isn't Gloriana, and that's a Veriswa 2212 that I have replaced Classic Colour Works Peanut Brittle with. And a few episodes ago I did write in the show notes my conversion. You'll see here that one of the ways that this does work is the use of a very bright green there, and I've managed to emulate that with the silk that I have chosen. So thoroughly enjoying that, and there's not too much to stitch actually in this. It's I mean, if you put your mind to it, you could probably do it even in a week if that's all you did with your life. But I'm not putting that sort of pressure on me at all, and we'll just do a little bit, maybe one motif at a time. It would be nice to finish the border though before I do too much more. Now, the third one is one that it was Laura of the Serial Starter of Brenda and the Serial Starter, and when she and they do show a great many, I have to say, but when she lifted this one up, I thought, no, I have to do this one. And unlike the previous one, this is again by a young girl in 1846, but it's a much more regular one, particularly the border. The border is much, well, it wouldn't be difficult, would it? But there's a much more regular one, very ordered and very well spaced design. And I've just realized this is the sampler that I've used the corn tassel, 37 count corn tassel on. So the previous one, let me see, my Heart Can Rest, I've been using R&R Reproduction 36 count Winter Brew for that one. It's beautiful, isn't it? So the corn tassel is the one that's called for in the Charlotte Frost, 1846 by Scarlett House. And that's the one that I obtained from 123 Stitch. And the Scarlett House has the, I think it's NPS silk she has suggested, needlepoint ink silk, and then she gives DMC conversion, and that's what I've chosen. I've chosen to use DMC, and DMC is nice. It really is nice for a change. And I know one stitcher who loves DMC and is always swearing by it, and that is Narissa of Narissa's Stitching Lifestyle down in New Zealand. So it's lovely to come back from time to time to DMC. And here we are with the actual sampler. And I'm really enjoying this linen. And as you can see, there is just no way I'm going to just keep with borders at all, or even particularly coming down from the top left all the way very rigidly. I thought I would jump and go straight down to this motif here. And I just completed that motif, and there's a sense of satisfaction in just aiming for a reasonably small part of a sampler and actually getting it done, one motif. The colours in this are quite limited, really. There isn't a huge range. It's mostly red and green. The other reasons that I chose this is that, as you know, I have a red and green house, and I also wanted to go with the theme of sheep. I haven't got to the sheep yet. My plan is to do the bare outline of the border, which actually I have done, down to here, finish that, and then come across the top of this one, do the rosebud. I love stitching rosebuds, and then get to the house. And the reason for that is that I do take my time over houses, and so it's better to, and the grass actually, so it's better to get there and start this going while I'm completing other smaller parts. So there is method in my madness. And this actually reminds me of a pin keep, the Rose Cottage pin keep by Stacey Nash, that you'll know I've been sort of stringing along, or threading along if you like, for quite a few months. And that is taking longer than I thought, and it has a great deal of green grass, and I have finished the house and that, so, but it did take me longer than I thought, and therefore it's better to get in there, start on this, in my mind, in the way that I work, and then be doing maybe a little bit of another motif and coming back in and doing some more of the house. It's just really organising where you're going to stitch. I find it's really useful to say, as I pick up a piece of linen, this is the aim for this particular time, for this particular session, I'm aiming to do this, and make it a small aim. And then there's a sense of satisfaction at the end of that. So say the border, okay, I'm going to do one in and one out, and the two buds. And once you've done that, if you've still got time, then you feel really good, and you possibly would keep going. Rather than thinking, oh dear, I have to get this border done, and you get to the end of whatever you've managed to do in the time, and you think, oh, I still haven't done enough. So there are strategies, I think, to approaching samplers. They are, for me, they are a huge amount of work. And that's possibly because I'm filming as well, so there is an element of pressure over it, in that you feel you have to accomplish something for your next episode. But I think, honestly and truly, if I didn't enjoy filming so much for you on YouTube, these would get lain down, and they would be left. I would be on to the next thing. You make me accountable. So that's a great thing, isn't it, to be accountable? As many of you will know, I have quite a substantial library. I've really been blessed in this way, and I have built it up over quite a number of years. I have been known also to give away books, but say in the last 10 years or so, I found that every time I have given away books, I've then missed them, and I've ended up buying the copy again, not my own, but getting another copy. So I came to the place where I said, I'm never giving any other book away again. Well, we'll see how that goes. I do know that C.S. Lewis said that in heaven we will have the books that we've given away. So I think there'll be plenty of books for me in heaven too. I learn a great deal from sewing and knitting handwork books. I learn not only about the techniques, but you learn a great deal about the ladies, or indeed the gentlemen who have written them, and you learn about their perspective on the world. You will learn how they look on other parts of the world where they've maybe never visited, other peoples of the world, and the other artifacts that they're presenting in their books. And that in itself can be a complete fascination. I find particularly that the way that people look back on history and present it in textile books is quite fascinating and may not be exactly the same as mine. And in future episodes I might keep touching on that point. But I do like to keep to the point, which is the techniques. And I think I'm still learning a great deal. So I'll show you in a moment some techniques I've been practicing on. But I wanted to come first to a lady who really, I can't remember when I first came across her, but it would have been through the medium of the telly. The telly came into my life when I was eight years old. It was black and white, and I think there were 2 programs for children, and one was Watch with Mother, and the other one was Hank the Cowboy. And we had black and white telly until I think I was about 12 years old, and then 13 years old, and then it became colour. And our lives, that generation, were more or less taken up by television, and for good or ill. And we certainly were frowned upon by our English teacher, because our English homework was always to be done on a Thursday evening, and that was the evening that was Top of the Pops and The Man from U.N.C.L.E. And I'm sure that there will be quite a few of my generation and background who are saying, oh yes, I remember them. They were terrible programs, really. Well, not The Man from U.N.C.L.E. And I have to say I was quite thrilled when I discovered that my favourite grandpa was a GP, and evidently he was the doctor, the general practitioner, and he was the general practitioner for the actor David McCallum, who acted in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. So that was terribly important, wasn't it? Anyway, in those days, there was no way that you would have been a celebrity on TV at all. And we did look up to these people who were promoted week by week. And they were sort of, I suppose, they were sort of idolised by us. And we never thought that we were on the same planet as them, put it that way. Oddly enough, I was on television when I was 11, and sort of unwittingly, in that the BBC came to our school and made a film of my school, and I'm in the chemistry lab, aged 11. There, I still have a little of that clip. It's quite fun to look back on. Anyway, Una Stubbs. That's the lady I'm talking about. Una Stubbs, Aunt Polly, Wurzel Gummidge, and certainly she was in the film Summer Holiday with Cliff Richard, and a whole different era, a whole completely different era. And so she sort of came and went in my life. I think I must have been in my teens at that time when I came across her. She was somebody who was an actress, and I used to say, on another planet. But she came into my life quite unexpectedly, much later, through this book. She wrote 2 books, as far as I know, and In Stitches, and then A Stitch in Time. I have that one as well. I'm showing you this book. I'm pretty sure you would be able to obtain a copy of it yourself through somewhere like eBay, for example, and perhaps Amazon. In Stitches, Una Stubbs first picked up a needle and thread and a scrap of fabric 12 years ago. Completely self-taught, she's progressed to become an accomplished needlewoman. Una describes how her confidence grew from simple stitches to designing and embroidering her own pictures, clothes and household linen. Now, this she published in, I think, 84. Yes, 84. There's a picture of her there. A very pretty, vivacious lady. And again, having come across her, I can't remember where I was in 1984. I was probably not in the UK at that point, living abroad. And I absolutely treasured this book at the time. It's got so much in it that's so nourishing. It was just lovely to have the presentation with the photographs. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And she has some lovely ideas in here. Even if you don't do them, it's just lovely to look at. But she also does give a very, very good foundation of tips and tools, it's called, as to how to begin. And I thought with the family sampler that I'm doing the copy of, it would be a good idea if I went back and just practice some stitches. And so I picked her up again and just love this idea here. She's made a sampler. In fact, she's made 2 samplers there where she has been practicing her own stitches, and I will put a photograph in, a closer photograph of her lovely sampler. She's stitched on linen, and she was obviously a very neat stitcher, rather more neat than myself, I have to say. Does it matter? No, it doesn't. And if we understand that, in fact, the samplers that we are so addicted to making, stitching, were actually they were examples of stitches. They were used, they were started by, instead of old stitch work books, that could be a reminder of the stitches, and also I think just the way to practice, which is what I'm doing here. So I think I've raved on about this, probably not enough. Do get it, it's absolutely lovely. She's a sweet lady. I think she passed last year, and I do know that she passed in Edinburgh, and I was amazed about that. I always imagined she would be very much centred in the south of England, but maybe she had family up in Edinburgh, I don't know. And I rather kicked myself because I would have loved to have met her. Edinburgh not being too far from myself, I would love to have met her before she passed, but there you are. So what have I done? Well, here we are. I picked up a bit of permin. I bought this permin, and it really isn't quite what I would have used for samplers themselves, but it's very, very good just for practicing stitches. And I will be again putting a photograph on the in the episode to show you more closely. But the top line, I'm just using DMC, and I'm using 2 threads, and I think this is 28 count, and I've done the top line of double running stitch, which I have featured in the CC work and the black work episodes. And then I went into just half a line of chain stitch, and then the other half of whipped chain. And I hope to be continuing my sampler, maybe not every week to show you, but just working on various stitches as a practice shot again. And then the other book that I return to over and over and over, and I know it certainly is absolutely available, and that is Mary Thomas. And Mary Thomas Mary Thomas produced the Dictionary of Embroidery Stitches, and she produced that sort of 50 years earlier. It was first printed in 1934. And Mary Thomas herself, and I'll be going into more of the history, hopefully, of needle ladies who actually wrote books, because I do think that's fascinating. But she was a lady who used the way of magazines and magazine articles to spread her expertise and knowledge. And then finally she produced the Dictionary of Embroidery Stitches, and then she went on to her own embroidery book, Mary Thomas's Embroidery Book. That was first printed 2 years later in 1936, and then she went on to her knitting book in 1938. And they're all still available and absolutely excellent. And I am using this as well as a resource. And so I've had the idea, the inspiration from Una Stubbs, and then going to the actual how-to in this book here, from this book here. But of course there's the Anchor book, books of stitches as well, and quite a number of others. Not to mention how-to videos on YouTube. So with this book here, it's really useful because it's got a vast number of stitches in here, and it will also give the other names. Often stitches are called by different names depending on where they originated, and so it's alphabetical, which I find very, very useful. And so I found the whipped chain stitch here in her book. She has chain stitch on canvas, chain stitch back stitched, chain stitch broad, chain stitch checkered, chain stitch crested, also known as Spanish coral stitch, and chain stitch checkered is also known as magic stitch and magic chain stitch. Then there is chain stitch detached, see daisy stitch, and I think I learned it originally as daisy stitch. And then there is chain stitch double, chain stitched feathered, also known as chained feather stitch, chain stitch heavy, chain stitch knotted, chain stitch open, chain stitch reverse, chain stitch rosette, also known as bead edging stitch. And I just think, oh, that's wonderful, I have to go and try that. I think I'll do that once I've finished this episode. Chain stitch Singhalese, chain stitch square, tail, threaded, twisted, Van Dyke, whipped, zigzag. And so I don't think will we ever get to the end of this? Well, we'll certainly run out of fabric, I think, before we'd finish them. But it's a real joy. Now, I can't quite remember how many stitches I did learn, and I learned at school, and I think I maybe learnt 6 stitches, something like that, and that just kept me going for all of my adult life right up to now, where at my advanced age I'm now learning many more stitches completely new to me. So it's a whole new world, as they say. So that was a bit of stitching I was doing, and then the other bit of stitching I took from Mary Thomas's embroidery book, and there is a reason for this. I will be going on into other work with you in these episodes, and I do intend to I'm just going to cover that actually. There's method again in my madness, and I will be going on with this type of stitching. With her embroidery book, she's talking about actual not the stitches but the actual embroidery. So she has filet darning, for example, hedibo or hedabo maybe, cut work, the varieties of embroidery. And so I opened it at page 188 and just had a look at that one there and thought, oh, I'd quite like to do that. So I have done a leaf. And because I'm sort of learning, it didn't take a whole afternoon, but you know, that afternoon was taken up by, put it that way, and I did a leaf. I'm working just on a piece of nice cotton, and DMC green for the leaf, and I'm using single thread for this, and following her instruction, the outline is in chain stitch, and then the filling is with herringbone stitch and dot stitch, and then these here on the other side of the leaf are Portuguese stitch and French knots, and French knots are interesting. No one seems to quite know how to do them. I looked up a few books, and they were all different as to how to produce a decent French knot, and then I went to YouTube, and there are so many people out there filming their variations of techniques on how to produce a French knot, or a French dot, sometimes they're called. So frankly, you do your best, don't you? You do your best, and you enjoy what you've produced. I think that's the answer for that. I've no idea what this will be made into. I tend to start something with embroidery just with an idea, and then build from there. If I'm doing my own, it's really playing around. It's really playing around, but isn't that what we should be doing? We should be enjoying ourselves. Another book that I use a great deal of and can highly recommend, particularly for the pictures, is The Embroiderer's Flowers by Thomasina Beck, and it's one of, I think, 4 books that she actually produced. This is a great book just for taking and browsing and being inspired by, and this is what I was doing. I think I'd taken it up to bed one night with a number of other books and was just browsing through the pictures and came across this here, and I will put in a photograph of it closer for you to see the detail on it, but it's an embroidered smock top. And having looked at this, I just thought, oh, I'd absolutely love to do that one. I do need another summer dress. As you will know, I do like not only to embroider items for small gifts, but I do like to embroider my own clothing as well. And this is a bodice of a blue serge dress designed, worked and worn by May Morris. Of the colours principally used for embroidery, she wrote in Decorative Needlework, a book that she had produced, blue is one of the pleasantest. Choose these shades that have the pure, slightly grey tone of indigo dye. And I did have a friend who would dye wool with indigo, and it's a magic process, and well worth trying. So I went for a very straightforward blue cotton, and I couldn't quite see. I did use a magnifying glass to try and suss out what her actual pattern was, and I think I got pretty close to the effect of it. I'm just still working on it, so I shall show you my progress so far. It's very straightforward, quite light cotton that I'm using, and DMC, just white DMC thread to try and get the effect that she had in her embroidery. I'm using a smock pattern from Simplicity. I think I got that from eBay and adapted it slightly, and I will be planning to use, it's just tacked together at the minute, I will be using I think a 3/4 length sleeve. If you look on the original pattern of May Morris, then you will find that she has made a wonderful, wonderful cuff, deep cuff. She's used embroidered covered, self-covered buttons, which I love doing. I'm decided that I would go with something rather more simple. It's not serge, it's light cotton, and it's going to be for a summer dress. I better hurry up actually, because the weather is no doubt going to warm up again, and I'll be needing a lighter dress to wear again. I'm going to use a 3/4 length sleeve and then put an embroidered cuff. That's the plan. This is the pattern I have adapted, and as you can see, it's I think probably a 1980s style of smock dress, and I really just wanted to get the pattern pieces correct, and it's just getting the pieces correct for the smock effect, and then just a loose, I'll adapt the sleeve and pop a cuff on there. And so that's another way to be using embroidery. And as I say, this book, Embroiderer's Flowers, Thomasina Beck, she introduces rather English orientated text about embroidery and embroiderers, but she does have a wonderful selection of very inspiring photographs in her books, so highly recommend that. Now, May Morris has been a very important influence in more recent years in my life. I'll just put that down. And I was absolutely delighted when I came across this book. It was long awaited actually. I think possibly it was really rather overdue. It was published by the V&A in 2017, and it's there are a list of contributors to it, and it's an absolute delight. It's giving you various aspects of May Morris's life: a well-crafted life, sketches and watercolours, wallpapers and embroidery, book covers and designs, dress and costume, jewellery and metalwork. These are written by various contributors. And May Morris, as people will know, is the younger daughter of William Morris, the famous arts and crafts designer, and she has been increasingly an influence in my embroidery life, and I'm just very happy to be stitching a dress that I can wear that will remind me of her. In fact, she has another lovely dress on the back here, photograph. So I was delighted when I was looking through this book initially when it came, and I do look through it a great deal, when I came across an embroidery by her that is a garden piece panel. It's silks on linen, and it's worked in long and short stitch, stem stitch, satin stitch and French knots, and it's 16 1/8 inch by 41 inch, so it's really quite large. This delicate embroidery was worked in the last months of May's life and shows that despite deteriorating health, she continued to produce work of the highest quality. It may be related to an unrealised commission she received from Sir Geoffrey and Rosalie Mander for Whittick Manor. And if you can ever get to Whittick Manor, I highly recommend Whittick Manor. It's full of pre-Raphaelite arts and crafts. Amazing place to visit. So there is the embroidery, a beautiful embroidery stitched by May Morris. And the designs of those times in that era in England by the arts and crafts workers there. This is actually 1938. It's quite a late piece. Were very much focused on flowers, on floral arrangements, and usually depictions that were pretty realistic, not too far from what the flower would originally look like. And I'll just show you that again. You can see that, you know, they do look realistic flowers. And I was absolutely thrilled to come across this. And the reason was that it was resembling pretty closely a work that I have been lifting and laying for quite a number of years. It's finally to be covered on this box, and I call it Pimpernel, and I cannot remember when I began this, but it was perhaps, I will look up, I'm sure I've got a note somewhere, you know I record everything. It was maybe 2016 I started this, and it must be finished now. It's DMC and anchor threads, and it's to go on this box top, and there is a gold thread through it. There is a photograph of it on my Instagram account, which is a long time ago. You have to scroll back a great deal. But can you see that it is very similar to May Morris's approach to floral arrangements and just the depiction of the flowers and the stems. This is, I'm calling Pimpernel. You know, perhaps Pimpernel's a tiny, tiny little scarlet flower. I wish I had a Pimpernel to show you, but there you go. And that was my inspiration, the actual flower, and then the scattering of flower and stems across the whole, rather randomly across the whole design. And when I came across May Morris's much years later, I was really struck about how similar that is, and I was really thrilled about that. Now she has used satin silk on I'm going to have to look at that in a minute, but she certainly hasn't put in a background, and that was, I think, where, well, I'll be happy when it's finished, put it that way, but it was perhaps rather a mistake, because this is why it's taking quite so long to complete. And that, and the other reason, I just have to sit down and do it. Let me just see what she actually uses. I came across William Morris, I cannot tell you when, but certainly 20 years ago, something like that, and was captivated by his work, and then collected a great many of them very, very many books about William Morris. And then I drifted gradually into reading about Jane Morris, his wife, and then ultimately to his daughters and his younger daughter May. And I did feel a great affinity to them pretty early on. Here we are. So this is silks. It is on linen. It's on linen. Silks on linen. And mine is cotton on cotton. So where to begin with this? I had visited Kelmscott, which is their manor house, which was their manor house situated where the River Thames begins, and it's in very low-lying countryside. It's beautiful, very much to the west of Oxford. And they had moved there. William Morris shared the lease, evidently, with Dante Gabriel Rossetti, and they moved down there with the two girls, who I think perhaps were in their young teens at the time. Jenny is the elder daughter and May the younger. And after her parents died, May went back and lived in Kelmscott Manor. It's you can still visit it. It's a delightful property. When I went there, it was a summer's day, and it's just laid out so beautifully. It's not so very large, and it's at the further end, the river end of the village, if you like. And it has the standard rose trees going up to the front door. There's I think a stable block at the back with grass and the river, and beautifully laid out gardens. And I went for a walk in the garden and down the flower beds. There were roses and aquilegia. There was a beautifully clipped hedge, and I went and sat down. I was on my own, and I sat down on a bench by the hedge. And just with that, this lady came in a beautiful dress, came towards me laughing, came running towards me, and sat down beside me as if I was an old friend. And I looked at her and I thought, this is very, very strange. It's very strange. It was as if she'd known me, as if she knew me, and as if we were friends. And she was very happy to see me and was very welcoming. And I felt when I was at Kelmscott, in a way I'd come home. I knew it. And it would be the place I would want to be, or I wanted a place of my own that was very similar. It had all the loving kindness that I wanted in my own life. And I never knew who the lady was. Was she Jane, or was she May? And I now know, years later, I think I know the reason for why that happened. And it's another piece of the jigsaw puzzle that I keep adding at the end of my episodes to this story that's going on. And this was another piece of the jigsaw. I didn't know at the time why that had happened. I'm not sure whether it was Jane or whether it was May, but I think I know now why that happened. And so here we are now in the real world with a real book that I highly recommend, a book about May. There's also Thomasina Beck's book. There is Mary Thomas's book. And there's so many books that I hope that you will be able, that you would like, that you would be able to obtain and to enjoy and be inspired by. Now, just before I go, I do want to show you and share with you one final thing, and that's another lady. And my sister managed to go and visit her house again in the south of England, in Hampshire. And oddly enough, even though I did live in Hampshire more than once, I never actually managed to go and visit her house. My sister did. However, I visit her in other ways. I come back to her very often. I will have phases where I'm completely into her, and then be intensely focused on her and her work, And then after a while I will move on again and say that's enough, and then maybe a year later I'll come back round again to her. And so here we are again, and I've come back round to her. I can't tell you why, and I'm stitching along with her, and it's Jane Austen. It's Jane Austen. So here we are with a pile of Jane Austen resources that I am thoroughly enjoying as I'm stitching my samplers. And I have a few more, and I certainly have the books. I have beautiful copies of the books. Often they will reproduce Jane Austen's books, and they are sometimes in absolutely lovely covers. I came across Jane Austen at school when we studied Austen, and we studied Emma. And I think the worst thing personally that you can do, in fact I can quote here, what does she say about her schooling? She says something about, this is Jane, "I would rather be a teacher at a school than marry a man I did not like." And then it says, "To be rational in anything is great praise, especially in the ignorant class of schoolmistresses." And I'm actually teacher trained, so I think I'm free enough to say this. But the one thing I don't think you should do is teach something at school if you want it to be loved thereafter. And I unfortunately was put off Jane Austen at school, and it took me a very, very long time to actually come around to Jane and thoroughly appreciate her. And then, of course, as with so many other people, I became obsessed. So here we are. Here's my little list. I do have more of these, by the way. So let's go with this one first. This is the Jane Austen Book Club. Highly recommend this. It's such fun, but it's also very clever. 6 months, 6 novels, 6 members. The Jane Austen Book Club takes reading the classics to new heights of passion in this romantic comedy featuring an all-star cast. When 5 women and 1 man get together to discuss the beloved novels of Jane Austen, they realise the heartaches of Emma, Mr. Darcy and the Bennet sisters are not so different from their own. Finding comfort, wit and wisdom from the pages and each other, they discover that in matters of love, all they need to ask is, what would Jane do? And this is including Emily Blunt, one of my favourite actresses, Emily Blunt. She was wonderful in The Young Victoria and The Devil Wears Prada, and this is just a great fun. She acts very well as the very upset young wife who wants to go to France, and she's American and she really wants to go to France. So a great deal of humour there, and I think a little bit of poignancy as well. But it's probably wiser to follow the actual stories, using the DVDs to follow the stories, or reading the stories themselves first is the best. But then going to the renditions in the film, you would then have more understanding of the humour when it comes to the spin-offs that are based on Jane Austen. So here we have Romola Garai and Johnny Lee Miller and Michael Gambon. A wonderful rendition, very warm and lively rendition by Romola, lovely actress, and it's just a very, very charming rendition of the story. It really brings it to light, and it's just a wonderful story. If you haven't seen it, yeah, Mr. Knightley, yes. So there's Emma, and then a film that a great many people absolutely love is the Jennifer Ehle and Colin Firth, the BBC Pride and Prejudice. It's not absolutely my favourite. My favourite is the Greer Garson one, and you can still actually obtain that. I'm finding that I could buy a copy of that, so that's on my to-do list. But Jennifer Ehle, actually, Ehle is how you spell her name, was a wonderful, made a wonderful rendition of an Edinburgh housewife or lady in another film where she's married to someone who made a dictionary, and I'm not sure what the title of that film is, but she's very, very well acted in that, and I highly recommend that film. So now here is my pile. This is what I will potentially be watching. I have another house guest coming, so there will be other things as well in my summer. But watching this while I am stitching my samplers to share with you next time. But I just did want to finish with a little side note. Jane Austen came into my adult life, I think, when by the time I had actually lived in a number of country villages in the south of England. And when I arrived, I partly grew up in North London, which I loved, but I had never lived in rural England, rural southern England. And as an adult, being first married, I did find it absolutely foreign. I'd come from a very busy Scottish city down to rural England. We had no car at the time, and the buses that would go into the local little market town, I think, went every hour and took about 2 hours to get there because they stopped all the time. And I think the bus service is still pretty much the same in rural southern England to this day. I found it very, very, very foreign to me and extremely slow moving. It was my sister who actually went to Jane Austen's house, not me, and I would have loved to have gone. That might still be on the cards to do that. But certainly living in rural Hampshire, rural Wiltshire, I did find that I was going to have to learn what made the people tick. And I think it's still true to this day that what makes a great deal of that rural life tick is still the Anglican fabric in the background. And so actually I did eventually join the Anglican Church for a while. I read The Hobbit, and the Lord of the Rings I'd read already. But I think if you're really going to understand a people, a different culture, if you go to their literature, that's an extremely useful key for unlocking the door to understanding and coming alongside what really is a different culture to your own. And so I eventually, much later, I obtained the prayers of Jane Austen, and because I don't think that you can understand her novels without understanding that fabric of the Church of England in the background. It certainly informed her life, her family life, and definitely her novels. And this is a lovely little book. I'm sure you can still obtain it. Her prayers. When you read her novels, you're not immediately thinking of, particularly of the church. Though they were church going. Her father was a vicar in the Church of England, but it's not in your face. And so I was quite surprised that she had that she had written prayers. And so to follow this up, I've just obtained the spirituality of Jane Austen to understand a little bit more. And this is by a lady called Paula Hollingsworth, who actually is serving in the Church of England at St Paul's Cathedral in London. I've just started this, so I won't review it today. I won't tell you what I think of it, except just with the first chapter. It's a nice read. It's not difficult, and she has done her research, and already it's interesting. Did you know that Jane Austen's elder brother became Admiral of the Fleet in the Navy? I didn't, and it was quite astonishing to me. The wonderful thing about reading and of course about textiles and about stitching is that it takes you, you then follow a thread and you discover history and so many other aspects that enrich our lives. They really do. So there's a book. I bought this through Amazon, and I'm sure it's easily obtainable. It was published in 2017, and so I will be following the thread of Jane Austen in the next few weeks, and certainly we'll be chatting about the films as I watch them, and of course coming across, there's another lovely one there, also coming across threads and fabric and samplers, and of course other aspects of stitching and embroidery, which I will be sharing with you. So it's been lovely to have you again in my dining room, as it is, and just coming together for a while again and sharing things. I hope that you're inspired by something that I've shown you today and that you've enjoyed it. Have a very, very good week stitching and enjoying watching stitching, and I'll see you again very, very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.